everyone, let's make some zucchini bread for a cozy, warm fall snack. First, I'm going to preheat my oven, and then we are going to follow the recipe from my Betty Crocker cookbook. And what I'm going to do first is grate the zucchini. This is a rather large zucchini, and I have my little grater here that I've had for probably about 30 years. And I'm just going to grate this up, and we're going to see how much we get, because for 2 loaves, I need 3 cups. So I'm just going to keep grating here into my measuring pitcher. And now that we are all done with our grating, we're going to go ahead and see how much we have here. So I'm going to measure this out with my 1 cup measure. And I have my bowl here. So we're going to have 2 cups, and now it looks like we are going to have 3 cups, so we will be able to make 2 loaves of zucchini bread, and that is what the recipe calls for. So first we're adding our sugar, and then our vegetable oil here. And next we are going to add our eggs. This recipe calls for 4 eggs, and I am going to leave this recipe down in the description box so that you can try this recipe as well. So here we are moving on to our 3rd egg. And I do crack them into a separate bowl so that I can see if there's any imperfections and I would not want to use that egg. But here we move on to our vanilla. And we are going to stir up these ingredients. I'm using a nice big fork because that's going to incorporate all those egg yolks into my batter. And I'm just going to keep stirring this until everything is all incorporated. And then we will move on to our dry ingredients. I'm adding my flour 1 cup at a time and stirring it in as I go. And here we get this nicely incorporated, and our batter is looking good. There is the 2nd cup of flour, and I will keep stirring this in. This recipe calls for 3 cups of flour. And there we go. And there is our 3rd cup of flour. I'm also going to add in the rest of our dry ingredients, which include baking soda, salt, and cinnamon. And then we are going to move on to some baking powder. That's a 1/2 teaspoon there. And then a 1/2 teaspoon of cloves. And those are the dry ingredients, and now we're just going to mix those up with my big fork, getting all of that stirred in so it's nicely mixed. And here we'll move in with the spatula so that we can scrape the sides of the bowl and get all of that yummy batter into our bowl. So there we go. And everything looks good. All that yummy zucchini in there. And here I have 2 pans for our 2 loaves, and I'm just going to prepare those with some cooking spray and some flour to make sure that my loaves come out nicely. I'll make sure that the bottoms of those pans are nicely coated. And now we are going to take and add our batter into our pans, dividing it in half. So there's our first pan. And now into the glass loaf dish. I don't know if you remember, but I hauled that loaf dish from Walmart. It was on clearance for $4. It had been $17. So now I'm getting some use out of it. So here we go with our batter, and it looks like that is all the batter there. And we have 2 pans ready to go into the oven. I'm just going to clean off the excess flour from the sides of the pans. And now we have our oven ready, and we're going to place those pans into the oven. And then we will set our timer. And we are going to set our timer for 50 minutes. So there we go. And we will wait that 50 minutes. And now we're going to check our loaves. The timer has gone off, and it has been 50 minutes, and I'm going to pull these out of the oven. But first, I am going to check them with a toothpick, and we're going to check this loaf here in the glass pan and I can see that it is not ready. The one in the metal pan is ready, so we're going to take that out of the oven and place it on our cooling rack. There we go. And we will let this one cook a little longer. And we will set the timer for 10 minutes. There we go. And after that 10 minutes, we'll check our loaf again with another toothpick. And that toothpick looks nice and clean. So now we will take the loaf out of the oven and place it on the cooling rack to cool down with the other loaf. And here is our zucchini bread, everyone. We have 2 loaves from that recipe. I'm going to keep one and give one to my son and my daughter-in-law. So they will get this loaf tomorrow when they come over. But right now we are going to taste this. I have my bread knife here. And it's done all the way through nicely. Yeah, it took longer to cook in that glass pan. So now I'm going to take a bite. And it is really good. You can see the flecks of green in there. I'm going to have another piece with a cup of coffee. Thank you so much for joining me today in making this zucchini bread. I will leave the recipe in the description box so you can give it a try. Have a wonderful rest of the day, everyone. Bye.